Welcome to The Diamond Mine with David Fuller, a podcast from the Rough Diamond Academy. Hello and welcome to The Diamond Mine. My name is David Fuller, for those who don't know me, and today my guest is Shelley Cass. And Shelley is, a school teacher by day and an author by,
Any other minute,
exactly. Welcome, Shelley. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
So, full disclosure, Shelley is a friend of my eldest daughter, Elise. And Elise came home, a few months back, it might have been longer, I don't know, with these books. I'll hold up one. There's three of them in this series, the series is called
A Fairy's Tale?
A Fairy's Tale. I'm going to have a crack at this. Now, for the people not watching this video, you don't know what I'm holding up if you're listening on audio only. Lanerity.
Well done. The last Lanerity.
The last Lanerity. And so, all right, let's backtrack. So my daughter comes in with this series of books. This is what Shelley's written. And I'm like, really? Your friend Shelley? She's like, I said, wow, she's a writer. She's an author. This is amazing. Which kind of blew me away because I got kind of an inkling of what it is to write stuff. I'm a different kind of writer, I write, but the thought of writing a novel, let alone a series, is kind of mind-blowing to me. When did you start writing? And how did this happen?
So this was a half my life long project. The last Lanerity popped into my head I was in year 8. So I was about 14 years old, going on 15.
This is a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I've poured half my life into it. No wonder I've got so many grey hairs.
Oh, wow. People listening can't necessarily see that. I've got plenty of those. Don't worry about grey hairs. They're fine.
My fiance had some fun trying to work out how to colour my head in the other day.
Of course, and I should tell people that. So you're in Melbourne, like I am.
Yes. And
so what's the 17th of August today? So we are in stage 4 lockdown here.
Yep.
Which for those of you who aren't in stage 4 lockdown basically means we can't go anywhere or do anything. Pretty much we get, an hour a day to go for exercise within a 5 kilometre radius of the house. That's as far as we can travel unless we're deemed an essential worker who has to go to work.
Yeah.
So you're in lockdown like me?
Yeah, and I've just got to rely on Jared to dye my hair.
He's doing a fine job, Charlie.
He did. I thought he did well. Yes, he was stressing.
Well, when we're out of lockdown, you can come do mine. Oh dear. So we're in lockdown. We really can't go anywhere. So that's kind of where we're at. So we might come back to that because I'll talk about lockdown and writing in a minute. But so she what? Grade year 8.
Year 8, yeah.
What are you in year 8 about?
14, yeah, going on 15.
Wow. So how does a 14-year-old decide to write a novel?
I was just, I loved reading already. I was the mousy little kid in the class that just didn't really say much and was always in my head. And reading was an escape. And then I could always just see these different scenes in my head that I hadn't read about yet. I just had a really good imagination, and Kiana, who is the last Lanerity, popped into my head. I could hear her voice. I could see her holding her bow ready to shoot. And then the images and words started to flow, and I just had to kind of write them down. And at year 8, they were not written down very well, but they were there.
Wow. So she came fully formed as a character. You could visualize her.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I think like her face is kind of shadowy, but it doesn't matter that I don't know exactly what she looks like. I know who she is. Yeah. Well, I have got an actress in my head going, oh, that's Kiana.
Well, hopefully one day you might have to have that problem of finding one. has she become more defined over the years for you? I mean, we're talking a number of years since year 8. I won't tell how many, but you've kind of given it away.
Yep. I think she's better at saying what she means now. So while I was growing up, these books were growing up with me. So the first book is Kiana, her story, her evolution from this really serious and isolated character, this huntress. And then when she meets her princes and she finishes her story in book 1, it takes us to book 2, which is Dallin, the Raiden. So that's about his evolution from the struggling youth, worrying about his masculinity and if he's good enough, and facing a world war crisis kind of thing.
You'll never get over that.
Yeah, never. And then the third book is Noel. So his is where the Army for the World comes together, and there's a prophecy. They are the 3. There's 3 books. Each character gets their own kind of awakening in each book. But Noel in the prophecies is the one that brings them all together, and that's what goes on in the last book.
Wow. And did you have that in mind when you first started writing it, or did that just sort of happen? Not at all.
Kiana was just shooting at stuff, so had to work out.
Enough. And the linearity, I mean, I don't know, for me, it kind of has that hint, and you've called it a fairy's tale. So was it drawn in any way, shape or form from the fae, from the from the fairy world?
Yeah, I knew I wanted it to be fairy tale characters. I wanted there to be normal human beings in it, but I wanted to go maybe a little bit further than Lord of the Rings kind of stuff, and really pick apart characters that we'd known since childhood. So you have your giants in there, you have your nymphs and dragons, and putting them in as major characters interacting to kind of represent maybe different parts of the world, like that there are different cultures going on.
So were you already reading this sort of stuff by year 8? You mentioned Lord of the Rings.
I was all over Lord of the Rings. My mum had this beautiful, original, gorgeous, all of the books in one copy. And I was in grade 4 or 5. She trusted me with this massive, beautiful book, and I dropped it down the stairs and it broke.
Well, the spine would have broken. Yeah. I know the one.
I did for that for years, and it took me one borrow when it was done.
That's the way it goes. That's books, though. I actually have, I think, a copy like that somewhere, but I also have a beautiful, individual set that a good friend of mine gave me for my 21st.
Nice.
Lovely, little notes in it. So I treasure that because she passed several years ago. So I love Lord of the Rings. So I was like 15 or 6, probably 16, I think, when I read Lord of the Rings, and it was a heavy read. Then you've already read it by 14.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I really, really loved my books. I hated the drive to school. I was always a really anxious kid. And Mum would be driving me to school, and I would hold her hand in the car. So we'd both be obviously in front of the car. I'd have my book in one hand, blocking out the fact that I was getting driven to school, and her hand in the other, because I couldn't really block it out.
No, wow. Look, and I can really relate to this, not so much the anxiety in the car, but the reading. I was a big reader from probably year 4 on. I discovered reading. It's almost like I got permission from my teacher, my grade 4 teacher, who was a nun, to read, and I just started reading everything, and I loved fantasy. I was trying to think, there was I can sort of visualize the book. It was sort of a sci-fi dystopian type thing. Even at that age, I love that genre, and I still do. I still love sci-fi and fantasy and all things along those lines. So I was a big reader too, but I didn't really discover. I was more probably science fiction. I was reading Asimov at 14 or 15, but I discovered Lord of the Rings at 16, and that set me on a path of reading fantasy probably for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
But I read nothing but fantasy for those.
Yeah.
It was interesting enough. My mother hated that, right? So she'd be like, oh, she'd be freaked out that I'd read science fiction and fantasy. Why don't you read something decent, she'd say. So I'm curious, you're writing this. Did you get any sort of pushback on the fact that you're reading a lot, disappearing into books or writing? What was that journey like for you?
It was natural. It just felt normal, because I never really thought it was going to go anywhere. It was just, like you always did things like, you had creative writing time in school. Like I just felt I was just doing that kind of thing. And my family are all very like, you do what you want to do to be happy, and everyone just kind of fits in together. And I've tried a few times to get away from fantasy. Like every other book that I've written, I've tried to challenge myself with different genres, but I can't help but have a fantasy twist in there. So I've written a dystopian sci-fi kind of book, but it just turned out that there is this fallen star who it surrounds. So he's in the sci-fi world, but it's surrounding a magical being.
Well, there you go. Is there a prophecy in that one?
Not in that one, no.
You didn't quite get all the fantasy stuff in there. There's no
all.
prophecy. There's no codex that you've got to work from. So,
well, there you go. I tried an erotica, and really, how can you put fantasy in that? But I did.
Okay. Erotica?
No.
Okay. We got to explore this a little bit. Can't let you get away with that. So
that one definitely did not start that when I was 14. That one was last year.
Okay, very good. I'll have to check that out.
But that one, it's based around the concept that at the very start of time, man's first dark deeds birthed these dark creatures called darklings, and it's their exploits that we're following.
So it's fantasy.
Yeah, but set in a very gritty modern world. So I've tried proper fantasy, that is the A Fairy's Tale series. Then I've tried sci-fi, popped a little fantasy in there, and erotica. And
if it works for you, go for it.
Yeah.
Who are your inspirations? The authors that you love?
There's an author called Megan Whalen Turner who wrote the Thief series, and I don't think it's not something that a lot of people necessarily have gone, oh, I've definitely heard of her. But she has a very cult-like following. I'm not that bad, but we've been following her journey because I read her first book in year 8, and it was actually what made me so hungry to write for myself, her book The Thief. And it's been 20 years or something. She every year she's like, I'm going to be releasing the new book this year, and then just when it's meant to be released, she says maybe 1 or 2 more years. So we're all just clinging on.
Gosh, there's a few authors like that around. I think is Mr. Martin still trying to write the last of the Game of Thrones, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Despite the fact that the TV series has come and gone.
But now he knows what not to do, so it's all good.
Well, that's true. Interesting. And he's not. Robert Jordan's another one that comes to mind. And I think I was reading The Wheel of Time, and I think I got up to book 7 or 8, and I realised he was nowhere near finished. And I thought, I'll get away. I'm not reading any more of this until he is done. And unfortunately, he sadly passed before he finished the last books. So it was ghostwritten. I'm like, but I still haven't read them. I must get back to them. Wonderful series, but
I'd be curious how it.
Apparently it's pretty good, but I haven't. I think there was a nice. It was all laid out. I think they knew where it was going.
Okay.
I think, could be wrong, but I do love an epic.
Yeah.
So 3 in this one now. Any plans to revisit this and come back?
No, their story's done. They did it. Done? Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. I remember you mentioned science fiction. One of my favourite science fiction books from I was 14 to 15 when I first read it, was Isaac Asimov's The Foundation series.
Okay.
It's a trilogy. And it was a trilogy until it wasn't, because 40 years later, he wrote the last 3 books.
Uh-oh.
Double trilogy, 40 years on.
Maybe I'll do it when I've another 15 years.
Yeah, you never know. You might want to revisit it. So, I mentioned earlier that you're a school teacher by day. Is your big dream to be an author full time? Would you love to do that, or is it?
I would love if that would happen, but I don't know if maybe I could incorporate some elements of what I get out of teaching into a life as an author, because it's a very isolated kind of career. Like all my hobbies are very isolated. It's very sad because I cannot divide my mind when I'm writing. If there's things going on around me, I find it very hard. Can't have the TV on in the background. Sometimes music is helpful, but most of the time it's not. So even though I wish I was listening to lots of music or able to chat to people, I get really frustrated because my mind will not divide beyond the story.
Let's explore that a little bit, because I can really relate to this. As you know, I'm a writer, I'm a musician. This is my room, my work room, my cave, my studio. I spend a lot of time out here in isolation. Apparently we're all in isolation, but I haven't noticed yet. I haven't come out to find out. So I'm used to that sort of solitary existence. I'm a very social person, but I'm used to being on my own. And I'm the same. I can't. So my day job, if you like, is, websites and marketing and that sort of stuff. And I'm often writing code. I can't generally even play music when I'm doing that. I need silence.
Yeah.
To do that. I need that focus.
It's kind of, maybe as an author, as a full-time job, it would be better, because at the moment I just feel a bit guilty that I'm at work all day, and then if I want to do my writing, that means that I can't really see anyone. So I feel a bit guilty and torn when I'm writing, because it means that I've put my work and then my hobby before social events or before anything else.
Yeah, I can relate to this too. Okay, so let's maybe explore that a little bit. Do you actually get pushback on that sort of stuff? Is that an issue, or have you always had support through that?
Oh, there's so much support. My life is dripping in support.
Wonderful.
But in my own head, and also it's very hard, even when people are very supportive, for them to just be like, okay, well, we'll never see you then. Fair enough. That's not how it works.
She's off in writing land again.
So it's hard. You can't turn down social events. So it all often goes that the thing that I really need to get out is my writing, but I have to get my work done first. Then I have to do my social commitment kind of stuff and keep my loved ones supported as well. And then if I'm not too drained and if my brain is still working, maybe I can smash out a page.
Do you have a process for that? Is there a particular, happy place you sit to write, or just wherever you can grab it?
Yeah, it's just wherever works. For remote learning with school at the moment, quickly set up a home office. So at the moment that's the go-to, but working on an audiobook version of one of them at the moment. My life was this wardrobe behind me. And that's actually probably been the most successful, because who's going to come into a wardrobe to interrupt you?
Oh, that's so funny. I'll let you know a little secret. I'm sure there's maybe perhaps one listener out there listening to this who's actually heard my album that I released last year. Quite a lot of the vocals on that album were sung into the wardrobe in our back room, because this room wasn't available to me back then. My mother-in-law lived here. This was a granny flat, and I had nowhere to record. So I would sing into when no one was home, I'd get home from seeing a client or whatever, I'd rush in and do a vocal while I had silence in the house.
Yeah.
I would sing into a wardrobe, so I'd get the deadening of the sound with the clothing would absorb it. So wardrobes are very handy things.
They are very handy. Mine's got doonas hanging up so that
nice and dead. Yeah, that's very good. So otherwise you get that, like here's quite live. Getting that dead sound's really important for doing a voice only. So you're recording your own audio version of, is it this book or a different book?
No, so Awakened Dreamer, the sci-fi dystopian one. That's the most recent kind of hobby project. Yeah, it's very time consuming though. Who knew how many spit bubbles can exist within a mouth? It's pretty gross trying to edit.
Oh yeah, look, as someone who has to listen to his own voice as well in the editing booth, turns out there's a lot of noise.
Yeah, like I don't know if you just heard then, but our roof pops all the time. You hear everything.
You do.
Everything.
Do you have a pop filter? How do you like?
Turns out I pop an awful lot though, so too much spit.
Yes, well, we all do. That's right. The pop filters are very handy, but for those hard P's and things. But yeah, I mean that's a natural thing, and it's probably something that most people wouldn't appreciate if you're doing a recording. It's actually really hard work.
Yeah.
And of course, the more conscious you become of it, the harder it gets too.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to do that, to do an audio version?
There've been a few different phases of writing where I've just suddenly had this moment of awakening of, actually I could probably have done that myself. The last Lanerity was originally, I think, maybe double its size. And I paid a lot of money for an editor to look at it for me and tell me things that really I could have worked out for myself. I'm a teacher. I edit other people's work all day for a living. Why was I not doing this? So I was able to chop that book down by half and stop blubbering on about things that didn't matter and get right to the story. And then my next phase was paid money for covers to be made. Now, it took a lot of work for me to be able to communicate, this is what I want, can we change it to this? And then I realised I could just buy the images and try and learn for myself. Spent a lot of money on someone to read out an audiobook for me. Realised I could probably have done that myself too. So that's my moment of awakening at the moment, that I can try things for myself.
So I love listening to books. I listen more than I read these days. I struggle to read. Just from a focus point of view, I fall asleep. I'm getting older, Shelley, as it turns out. I do like to read a paper book as opposed to a digital one. I learned the hard way with my first, Series 1 iPad. When they fall on your forehead, they're quite painful. And I tend to fall asleep. But I do love to listen to books, and I particularly like it when the author does the narration. It actually just adds an element to the reading that you never quite get from, a third-party narrator.
I think I'm learning a lot as I'm doing it. I feel like the editing is massive for me this time round because maybe I wasn't as experienced at trying to slow it right down, or as I was making mistakes, you could just hear the frustration in I'm editing out all these annoyed sighs at myself.
Just doing outtakes.
Oh, I know, but it would, as I said, mostly be spit bubbles, so no one else would really enjoy that.
Now, an hour and 15 of Spit Bubbles by Shelley Cass.
Well, on YouTube about rainfall. I'm sure someone would enjoy.
I look at it. It's part of the joy of doing your own stuff. I mean, I do my own recordings and stuff, as you know, and I've had to learn those skills. Those skills never go astray. And as the Diamond Mine is part of the Rough Diamond Academy and community, and what we're about is, I guess, trying to help people to learn the skills so that they can be self-sufficient, for web marketing, etc. Yeah. By the same token, I'm certainly not opposed to outsourcing and having people, hiring people to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I always think it's really good to learn the skills yourself so that when you do hire people, you know what they're meant to be doing. So
Yeah.
you can actually delegate the tasks that you need done that is better to get done out, as an outsource, but you can control it because you understand it, as opposed to handing out tasks that you know nothing about, in which case you're kind of abdicating that whole process to someone. You've got no idea whether they're doing the right thing by you or not. So I think it's great that you're learning those skills, and that you'll have an understanding of it. I mean, that's a brilliant thing, for sure. Hopefully there'll just come a time where you're just writing full time, and then they'll take you into a studio to record the narration, and off you go, and it's someone else to do the editing and all the hard work.
Oh,
but you'll appreciate it.
I would really appreciate it.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure. So you mentioned to me off chat before we started that you had been doing some editing over the weekend. And I raise this really because, as an author doing your own audio version, you're self-employed, and it's like running a business. There's a lot of work in this that people never see. So how long did you spend editing a 30-minute?
So yesterday I started at 12 p.m. And continued on until 2:30, stopping 2:30 in the morning, stopping for 1 hour for dinner, and only achieved 30 minutes of editing. I think there's something wrong with me.
No, so that's about 13 hours of work for 30 minutes of edited copy.
No.
That's a massive task, and I think you were saying the book's got 75 chapters, and roughly 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hours of editing. So that's.
I'm the kind of person that once I've got something that I'm working on, I want to do it. I want to get it done, and I just want to focus on one thing at a time. But this is a hobby, so I can just, there's no rush. I can spend hours.
Well, great skills to learn. And as I said, you never suffer from learning the skills. And then at some point, hopefully you can let them go and let someone else take care of it, because you don't need to do them. So speaking of doing things yourself, so the self-published or through a publisher, how are you doing your books?
So they're all, so I've got a children's series, I've got the fantasy series, there's a few books floating around. They're all through Amazon, so self-published on KDP. So you can just go up to Amazon KDP page, and it says basically, once you've uploaded all your details and all of that jazz, upload your book. You've got to get the formatting right. You've got to get a number of things right before they approve it, but anyone could do it. The thing that I'm struggling with as an Aussie author, though, is the books are printed in America. So you have to order the hard copy books on the American site, but then they only sell the ebook through amazon.com.au. So there's different platforms, and America is a little bit temperamental in shipping to Australia. If they're not getting big demand, then they just won't list it as available. So yeah, I've had a lot of trouble with trying to get things happening for Australian readers. So originally I always thought that it was just going to be an ebook, and I was just going to put it out there and it wouldn't matter. But most people want the hard copy book, even though it's so pricey. So it's so frustrating to say, okay, it's released, and then everyone to say, we can't get it.
What's pricey?
Well, by the time you pay for so it's American dollars, then it's the shipping cost, it racks up. So recently I just got so frustrated that my readers couldn't get the books, and they were spending so much, and then they were all excited to tell me they'd bought them and how much money had I personally made, and I would say, well, probably $1. So I looked into a publishing company that works with the author. So you pay, they publish. It's called Shoreline Publishing. So hopefully I'm going to phase out or keep just as a side, kind of like as a first edition, all the ones I've already published, and Shoreline's going to revamp them and push them out there for Aussies.
Right. So just in Australia.
Well, they actually do worldwide, but my frustration is that my readers live in Australia and can't buy the book.
It's tough. We've got them. We're right.
Yes.
Doesn't matter about anyone else. We've got them here.
You're good.
And we've got first edition.
I can't even order them. Isn't that's just crazy?
Well, yeah, it is. I do understand your frustration because my CDs come out of New York as well. So they're actually printed there and they have to get shipped here.
Yeah.
Which is a pain.
Yeah, with time and
time. So you're
cost.
looking at weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
The cost isn't too bad. It's pretty reasonable, but once again, it's American dollars, so that if the Aussie dollar tumbles, as it has done from time to time, you know, it's your margins are gone.
Did they arrive pretty well packaged, or was there any damage or anything?
That's the odd, you know, they're in crystal cases, they get cracked. And ideally, as an artist, I would love to have, you know, more environmentally friendly packaging. You know, I'd like to have more of the cardboard or the, you know, rather than the plastic. But you've got to be pragmatic. It's unless you've got a big market, and I don't at this stage, it's impractical. But maybe one day. So it's the same sort of thing. You've got to get your books out there any way you can.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing with this publishing?
This is all very new. Very new. They're just working on the last linearity with me at the moment, and they're hoping later this year that will be released.
So they take care of the distribution, the whole lot.
Yeah. So.
And do you make more money, Shelley, out of this?
Hopefully, yeah. They seem to think yes, they seem to think so. But I guess I can only see. Time will tell.
I hope so. It's I don't know, a bit of a beef with me with artists that they get so very little from their work, you know. Publishing or all those people, the distributors, they all make their money, but it can be, you know, I know of musicians who get, you know, maybe 60 cents out of a sale. Yeah. Which is crazy, right?
Yeah. Especially when how much money you pour into it to get it running. Yeah.
And not just the money, the years of writing, like that dedication that you've put into writing a series, and you know, you don't necessarily get the return. So that's certainly a lot of dedication to put in.
Yeah.
So I certainly hope you get more out of this. Got to try that. Got to try it. So this is the dystopian one. You mentioned a children's series. Now I knew about obviously the fantasy. I knew about the dystopian one because you put out a little thing about naming it, so I knew that was coming. Yeah. And I knew about the
Darkling.
The Darkling is the erotica one, right? Let's call it what it is. I knew about that. But the children's series, tell me about that. The children's stories.
That was so. In any way, it just seems like my writing is just whatever I'm thinking or coping with at that moment. And when COVID happened, things are really kind of up in the air with school. The unknown was really getting to a lot of people, and I just decided that I wanted to try something different. And I had to go at illustrating, and it was lots of fun.
That's going to be my next question. Is it illustrator? You've just answered that. So you've illustrated it yourself?
Yeah, and one of them's a book of photographs. It's called oh my gosh, what is it? Oh, it's about my crazy dog Ace. It's everything he's done.
I know a little bit about your crazy dog Ace because I've seen photos on Facebook.
He's the apple of my eye.
How old is Ace?
He's just over a year.
It's a pup.
Yeah.
What sort of dog?
He's called a Finnish Lapphund. So he looks kind of like a blue heeler, Pomeranian, and Samoyed.
That's an interesting mix. Does he have the energy of a blue heeler?
Maybe just knock it off. Like if we were saying energy out of 10, maybe he's an 8.
Nice. Wow.
And I'm probably on the best day a 3. So
Yeah, a nice mix. You've chosen well. Dogs are wonderful. If my wife is listening to this, Nadia, if you're listening, I would love a dog. Stop resisting. We all need one. There you go. I'll just pop that in there quietly. Sure. Interesting to see if that gets back.
Yeah.
Would love a dog. I love dogs.
Yeah.
One day. I'm agitating. We'll get there. So's Louise.
Oh, surprise!
Surprise! Yeah, look what I bought you, dear. We could do that. Very good. So when will the publishing start?
They're hoping that they'll be announcing it, I think, in September, but it'll be released in December at this stage.
So ready for Christmas, people?
Yeah.
So we'll definitely put all the links when we have them, and whatever up, so that we can point people to your work where they can buy them. So we might work out what links are the best for now. We can always update them later as well when we have them, see if we can get some sales. I mean, it's what it's all about.
Thank you.
We have to support local talent. We have to support talent, full stop, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. That's great. And that was a bit of a change since last I spoke to you, that it was all self-publishing. Mind you, a lot of wonderful authors start self-publishing. I don't know if you're familiar with Matthew Riley.
Yeah. Yep.
So I like Matthew Riley's work. They're that fast-paced sort of read. I'm trying to remember who he based his style on. Will come to me. But his very first book, I think, was called The Contest.
Yes.
Have you read that?
Yeah, a while ago, but yeah.
It's a good read. It's a fun read. I really like that book. But he originally did that as, I'm pretty sure, Matthew, feel free to call me and correct me if I'm wrong. But he originally did that as a self-published work that he actually, got printed up, took around to local bookstores and sold. People remember bookstores, and actually sold, directly on consignment. And then he was eventually picked up by a publisher, and the rest is history.
Good.
So you never know where these things will lead.
Exactly.
I look forward to talking to you in a couple of years.
Let's see. I'll have a few more grey hairs by then.
Well, your assistant will be saying, well, Mr. Fuller will, she's very busy. We'll see if we can, give you a 15-minute slot.
Wardrobe.
What's next?
What's next? Finish this audio book. I think at the moment, so normally the creative burning desire is there to get something new out, and I've done that with writing these different stories. I've done that with illustrating. I think at the moment now I'm just interested in going over the stories in audio form and seeing if I can do better each time I'm recording. I'm happy with how it sounds, but I think I could make things easier with the editing in the initial phase. So let's see if I can do that for the next time.
So I'm going to come full circle. I mentioned that we're in lockdown here in Melbourne at the moment. So we really can't go anywhere very far for very long. So you're home at least, if you're following the rules, and I'm sure you are, 23 hours a day at least.
Yeah.
Has that led to more creativity, or has that hindered creativity? Because, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why.
I think everyone's feeling a bit lackluster and flat at different times at the moment. So this time has been like a coping mechanism. The creativity is a coping mechanism, or it's something that is dying. So I'm going from one day going, yes, I need to get things done. I need this as a project to distract myself, or I can't be bothered doing anything. I need to be a slug. So I think at the moment everyone's probably feeling like that. And I feel like I jinxed the world, and I'm really sorry, guys, but how many times in my past did I wish that I could just be left alone to get some writing done, and now I'm like, I'm sick of being left alone.
I'm sure you're not the only one who's had that thought. So I'm not going to blame you for it, Shelley. It's all good. And as someone who, as I said, likes the isolation in that creative space, I'm probably every bit as guilty. So it's certainly not going to hold you responsible for it.
I just wish that we all did have the drive at the moment, but the situation's kind of dampening it a bit, because this is the moment that all creative people really have the moment to shine and develop and not feel guilty about it, but we're all really tired.
Well, I think it's interesting, actually. That's you touched on an interesting point. I've heard this a lot, this sort of thought that somehow because we're in isolation or lockdown, or that we should be being more creative. It's that time, where you get to spend. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple to turn it on. It's not like a switch. We go, oh, good, everyone's gone away, I'll just suddenly be creative. It doesn't work that way. I know with me, I'm often more creative when it's inconvenience.
I know.
Than the other way around. Like I'll have all day home on my own and I can't get motivated to do anything, or nothing comes, or I try and I'm just not in the zone.
Yeah.
Suddenly people walk in the door and I'm like, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't kind of work that way, at least not for me.
No, I'm the same.
It's almost as if sometimes the conversations that you're having or the things that are going on around you cause the synapses to start firing, and then you start to drift, or at least I do. I start to drift, and people are like, hello, Earth today, Earth, where are you? Because my mind will suddenly take me in a different direction. And it's inconvenient. Or I'm just about to head off to bed at night and suddenly I had this idea and I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think it's the whole, if you're going off to hang up the washing or something out of the goodness of your heart, it's different to when someone says, can you do that? I think similar with creativity, when you don't have to, when you've got the time for it, there's no pressure or no spark there. But then when that's taken away from you, you resent it, and you're obliged to be somewhere else, and you wish that you could be doing what you want to do.
Yeah, you may have something there. I think it's a really good analogy.
We butt heads against obligation.
Rebels at heart. That's what we are.
Exactly. Daydreamers.
Daydreamers. Nothing wrong with daydreaming. And I remember as a young guy being told all the time that I was a daydreamer. And like as if that was, I look back and go, so was that a compliment, or were you, because I look at it as a good thing.
Yeah.
As an adult, and I think back, so that daydreamer as a child became the big dreamer as an adult, and those dreams have led me to do things. Dreaming is not only okay, it's essential.
Yes. Yeah.
I think daydreaming's just fine. So, my friend, I want to thank you for your time. I won't keep you anymore, but I say keep dreaming, keep daydreaming. To be honest, I can't believe that I didn't know all these years that you were writing. And I think it's an amazing achievement to have written one book, let alone a series, and then other books, and to do that all while working at a demanding day job, because teaching is demanding on both the energy and time. And I think it's an incredible thing that you're doing, and I really want to encourage you to keep doing it and to keep pursuing. I think it's just brilliant. It's an inspiration.
Thank you so much. Thanks for talking to me.
My pleasure. Thank you for talking to me. And as I said, we will put all the appropriate links so that people can get a hold of your work and support your work on our socials and pages, etc. So people have to come and find it. I've got to keep remembering that not everyone sees the video. I was going to say down below. And people will be listening to it again saying, what is it? Yeah. But anyway, we will have links somewhere. Come and seek them out, people, to your work, and we'll keep in touch. And all the best, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You take care.
All right, take care.